Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders Spoilercast for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Season 5, Episode 4, Bloom and Gloom. It's me, Rainbow Plasma, and I'm joined by my friend, Burned.
Hey.
And that's it. It's just the two of us. As mentioned, Flutter Guy can't make it for this, and Joel is still away at his
Australia
convention.
Con.
Yeah. He's being Australian, as you do. So
As is the jokes of tradition.
as is tradition. So this was an episode about Apple Bloom and being afraid of getting a cutie mark and like what that might be like. And I think first of all, it's kind of impressive that they can still come up with good CMC, good and fresh CMC plots to these episodes. Because the whole like cutie mark thing to a certain extent has been done. So it's nice to see that they kind of are still able to come up with these interesting kind of like storylines.
Which one? Oh, you mean where she like gets her cutie mark a bunch of times?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
what I
cutie
mean
mark flew where it
specifically
was.
is like, previously they talked about different things that you're worried about, like, oh, I'm worried about not having a cutie mark and all this kind of stuff. Now they're like, well, what if I do have a cutie mark and I don't
Yeah.
like it, or like what if I do have a cutie mark and that like makes me different and therefore
I'm worried
people
about
won't like me.
actually having it.
Yeah. Like I don't think that has really been a thing other than like cutie pox when she got a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that was really the same thing,
That was more of a episode. The moral was more on patience, right?
Yeah.
Where this one was more like I am afraid of actually having it.
Yeah. And it was kind of touching on like, I don't want to change as an individual and I don't want a cutie mark that doesn't represent me, and I want to make sure that, people will still like me even if I do get a different cutie mark and stuff like that. So it was kind of a fresh idea on the old CMC concept, right?
Yeah, it was very cute. I liked the moral of this episode, or how it played out. I guess Apple Bloom's worries, if you will.
Yeah. I think it was a really cool kind of way that it played out. Especially with like all the stuff figuring out near the end with like Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, and it touched on a lot of different worries in succession without making it feel rushed, which is cool. So
Yeah. Well, was there any like specific parts that you really enjoyed about it? Little favorite bits?
So I wanted to talk about something that's not my favorite bit.
Well, go for it.
So I was watching this episode with Kate Salbioshi on DeviantArt, and she was paying attention to like the stream chat, and I wasn't, because forget that. And she was mentioning the fact that like everybody since like the very beginning was like screaming about like Luna and stuff, and it's like, oh my god, I can't wait for like Luna must be in this episode, all this kind of stuff, and they're just like ranting and raving over it. And I feel like
Dreams, it must be Luna.
I feel like on that note, this episode was very predictable in my mind in terms of certain things that like they have like big reveals, and I feel like a lot of those were kind of really obvious. So like the second that she woke up and she had a cutie mark, I was like, this is a dream. Like since the very beginning, I was like, absolutely a dream. And then like, in your head, it's like, oh, Apple Bloom is dreaming. I wonder if Luna's involved, like obviously, right? So that was kind of obvious to me. And it seemed like everybody was freaking out over it. And it was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seemed like it wasn't a big reveal. Like when Luna came down, I wasn't like, oh my God, I didn't expect this. Like it was more like, oh, it's about time you showed up. You're tormenting this poor kid.
Things have been breaking loose for like the entire episode.
Yeah, where have you been? Jeez.
Yeah, there was like what is it? In the Scootaloo episode when Luna like helped Scootaloo through her dreams. That was the thing, right? I'm trying to bring that episode back in my mind.
It was the one with the campsite and stuff like that.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, I feel like that was treated well and this was treated just as fine. I hope that they do an episode with Sweetie Belle as well, where like Luna will help her. I mean, they
already
probably
did, didn't
won't.
they?
Like, with Sweetie Belle?
I swear they have.
I remember her going crazy over trying to help Rarity, and like that was a
there was
Sweetie Belle
something, because
thing.
there's a reason. So when Apple Bloom goes into the dream clubhouse,
Yeah.
both Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo are like, oh hey Luna, because both of them have had their own moments with Luna.
Yeah, it's just been a while. You know?
Yeah, I remember there
darn time.
was a moment in season 4 where Sweetie Belle had to like confront something in her dreams and was talking to Luna about something, but I
Okay,
don't
well
remember
then-
off the top of my head what it was, unfortunately.
Then we're set. Good arena.
Hmm.
Yeah. But on that note of like things being predictable and like people in the stream chat freaking out, like what on the side note, that's why I don't go to stream chats. But more to my point that when I watch cartoons or watch anything, I'm much more of a naive viewer.
Right.
Like I don't actually think about it at all. You know, I don't actually think about the episode or like, oh, what could be or whatever. Like obviously I do because I'm not an idiot, and I could like one of the thoughts of like, oh, this is totally a dream was totally in the back of my head. And then in the first scene of her like in the Everfree Forest, you know, like being scared of her own shadow, as it were.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking like, oh, you know, maybe Luna will help her through this because she's in a dark point of her dream, you know, but I'm not screaming it on the rooftops. I'm enjoying it for what it was. So I don't feel like how the episode was made was too revealing. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah, okay, I could see that. I think on that note, like, one of the things that I thought was really cool was the thing that was tormenting her in her dreams was her shadow.
Yeah.
And I think that was one particular one that I looked at and I was like, oh, that wasn't obvious to me, and like that was totally a reveal, and I was like, oh, that's cool, you know?
Yeah,
And,
that
like,
was played really well.
and they tied it into like how it's like these insecurities and stuff, they're coming from you, you know, like it's not something evil affecting you, like it's you and you got to get over that, you know.
Yeah.
So before we go too much further, I just looked up season 4. Season 4 episode 19 is called For Whom the Sweetie Belle Tolls.
Yeah, that's the one where she freaks out.
And she freaks out about Rarity's. She thinks that Rarity's trying to like upstage her, and so she sabotages one of her
with her dress.
Yeah. And that's when she gets
Luna
visited
helps
by
her in
Luna.
that?
Yes, and then Luna does the whole like Christmas past, present, future thing to show
that's
her
right. Oh
stuff.
my
Yeah.
goodness. And then how does Luna help? What is it? Scootaloo
Scootaloo?
again? Scootaloo's dreaming about running from something. Her fears, right?
Yeah, because she's scared of the ghost stories, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
like
right.
she needs to come to terms with the fact that she can be scared and like it's no big deal and it doesn't make you like not cool.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we had to wait an entire season for when Luna helped Apple Bloom. Lovely.
Right. So like each season there's been one of these. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I suppose part of my reluctance is I've never been, and like everybody knows this about me by now, like I've never been a person to like jump on board to like the kind of hype train for certain characters, you know, like I've never been the kind of person, you know, that kind of humor that like is like the kind of humor where they make a joke and then they like look at the camera and they're like, that's crazy, am I right? You know,
Yeah.
like I've never been a huge fan of those things that are kind of like really obviously like fan service in a way. And I felt like there was a couple of moments that were a bit like that, you know, like for example, like not really the Luna one because it fit into like the plot and everything, but there was like Luna, and then in Sweetie Belle's dream there was Octavia and Vinyl, and it was like, really? Like I don't know. It
Yeah.
was just like, man, there seems to be a lot of stuff thrown out to the fans, which is cool, but it was just like I did notice it and was like, well, that's a bit obvious.
Like that's fine. I don't mind those because to a certain point they're just characters that just people in general, like people who watch the show, find they really love. It's like, yes, fans really attach to them and it becomes like this thing. I'm doing air quotes, but there's still characters that a lot of people love, and when you incorporate those, like, yes, it's definitely fan service, but there's still characters that people enjoy putting them in there. And I mean, they're also the musician characters, right?
Right.
So like,
yeah, like
putting what our fandom calls the musician characters there is like
Right.
kind of nice for the thing instead of
Yeah.
making 3 generic enter background pony judge here.
So like my problem becomes like not necessarily that they did that, it's just people's reaction to it. So like, you know, I know I haven't gone and like looked up like
Yeah.
the subreddit or anything, but I know that this episode, like the top comments are all going to be about Luna and Vinyl and Octavia. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that was really cool about this episode that had nothing to do with that, you know?
Yeah, I feel like if our fandom wasn't like as like a pressure down on them or freaked out so much about things like that panel of judges may have been something relevant from past seasons, like what is it, the, you know, like the actual like what is that, the celebrity pony that was in the For Whom the Sweetie Belle Tolls, whatever that
Right.
chick's name
Yeah, I
is.
don't remember off the top
And,
of my
like,
head, but Sapphire
Entities
Shores
like
or something.
Yeah, Sapphire Shores, like entities like that, where instead of actually being
Right.
like
I just
DJ
don't want to
Pone
diminish
for-
like
my
the other
goodness.
good work that, because like it's really easy to be like, this episode was good because it had vinyl in it, but it's like, I think that we can critically look at this episode and be like this episode touched on a lot of new topics that we had never really talked about before, and the pacing, I thought the pacing was really good, even though it after the first dream, it kind of snapped through the dreams one by one. I thought the pacing was still really good and it never felt rushed.
Yeah. Because, like, the first one was the most important bit, right? Like, that's with your benefit of disbelief or whatever. That's when you're not supposed to suspension. Like, it's when you're not supposed to know that that she's in a dream, right? That's when they haven't given you any cue that she's actually
and then it
in
kind
a
of
dream.
spirals out of control.
Other than
there.
like randomly getting her cutie mark, but that's just like that's like a plot thing. And so like obviously that was off, and it's like, why does she randomly have her cutie mark? Obviously they wouldn't do the thing like this, blah blah. But it's the spiral downward for there, and then everything else you can kind of just rattle off the other features.
Yeah. So I just, the only problem is when I see that stuff, like I can immediately conjure up like, this is what everybody's going to be talking about, and it's like, to me it's like not that big of a deal. It's more like, oh, that's cool that they did that, and then I move on, so that's more of like a personal thing for me. You were mentioning cutie marks, and I want to move on because I don't want to sound like a downer about it. You were mentioning cutie marks, and so some of the things that were really cool was like the cutie marks that they gave Apple Bloom, because like a bunch of them were lame, but then there was stuff like her face and like that really derpy dolphin.
Yeah, her face winks at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dolphin was really, really good too.
It's great. It's like, oh, you're not an apple, and then they start like changing the voices around and stuff. Yeah. And that was a really cool sequence.
Something that I wanted to point out is the scenes in this. So like everything from scene transitions to how the scenes are laid out to like the camera views on characters were really fantastic. Mm-hmm. So like there's a lot of episodes where it's just like they're okay, or they don't do anything too fancy, but as the seasons have been progressing, they've been getting like more and more cool, or more dynamic is a word I like to throw around. But in this scene especially, I feel like I don't know who to credit, just like the animators, the writers, and like the storyboard panel, the storyboard, or whoever storyboarded this might have a lot to do with it. But like whenever something changed or transitioned, or it was like a camera, so like really an example is when she was talking to the pest pony, the old guy who's going to retire. There was like certain parts and how that went through when they were walking, and then it was like it would be up close to him, and like his face would get close to the camera, and then it would swap, and he'd be like in her Apple Bloom's grill. And I don't know, there was just a lot of little bits where I was like, like this is quite interesting. And I've been taking a comic class right now, and we've been talking about paneling and like how to make that interesting, and like a lot of the notes of like how to actually make certain like panels and views seem actually interesting to your viewer is a lot of stuff that I started noticing in this, and like something like cinematographic like this.
Yeah, and you can kind of relate that into video as well. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do that's not just like hard cuts left and right.
Yeah, exactly. And stuff like that hasn't really stood out to me a lot in the past in some episodes. Like there've been some cute things, but the entire episode hasn't been like, wow, this has been really awesome. Like everything from the dream sequences to her and like her dreams, it was just like, if you rewatch it, pay close attention to how each like scene or a shot like cuts to a different scene or whatever, or where the characters are in relation to each other. It was done really well.
Right. So speaking of something that stood out to me, what is it with this season and pancakes?
Okay. I know, right?
There's
they
been
really
pancakes,
like pancakes
in like every single like episode now.
Watch it be a theme. Like at the end of the episode, there's just some pony with like a pancake graph, and it's like going off the charts.
It's like there's something going along where it's like the evil villain from the season finale is going to be like something to do with pancakes, and it's like, it's been here all along, or like there's been a spell put over Equestria. And the only indication that you'd know that the spell has been cast is that everybody craves pancakes.
I feel like it's a good go-to comfort food that horses can eat, right? Like you're not gonna go to like your big hamburger or something, right?
There's no bacon there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was so funny to me because, of course, like there was the acknowledgement of the pancakes, like from like Twilight in the first or the last episode, right? Mm-hmm. Where she was like, I'm pancake. And then like this one, like Applejack's doing some sweet pancake flips, like.
Right?
It was
great.
And
that little jingle she was singing at the end, that little like nursery rhyme she sang,
that was really
was really adorable.
That was really cute. Yeah, like it was, I like those little touches. Like it doesn't need to be like, let's make a 2-minute song about you going to sleep and not worrying about your cutie mark. It's just like it was just a little thing, and it was like, ooh, makes me feel all tingly.
Yeah, right. It was a little lullaby that existed within its world, like with a little pony. It was quite cute.
Yeah, I don't remember what the term is. There's a term for in musicals the kind of like cutaway effect of like when a song starts, like it summarizes actions that are actually happening, but the things that are happening within the song and the dancing around and the singing isn't actually happening. It's more of like
Yeah.
a summary of what's happening or what could be happening, you know?
Mhm.
And so it kind of like takes liberty. So you start and end, and that's reality. But in the middle, like how you get there is kind of like made up with the song.
Yeah.
Whereas you have these kind of songs which are like, no, they're actually singing them word for word. This is what's happening, you know? And it's cool. I like it.
Okay.
It's cute.
Yeah, it's definitely. I agree. A little thing I want to talk about is I've been writing notes down while I was watching the episode, and one I put for myself was Groundhog Day.
Yep.
Because like that's definitely something that we all think about when you have to repeat your life. Because like she was in her dreams, right? But she was also repeating said dream or repeating that day. And I liked when they kept returning to her waking up. I felt like they did that very cute. So like the first time she kind of wakes up and it's you notice that scene's very slow. It's very drawn out and she goes down to breakfast very slow. And then the next time she wakes up, obviously it's a little bit paced a little bit quicker, but she's like, oh my goodness, I woke up. And I love the part where she slams against the window and goes kunk and like puts her face right up against it and scares the rooster outside her window. I felt like that was that was really funny.
Did you see the Pinkie Pie?
Yeah, and then in the last scene where she wakes up, Pinkie Pie flies by the window with
the
balloons and a
chicken
chicken.
suit.
That was really funny too.
I like that. You know, that's the kind of thing. It's like subtle. If you're paying attention, you'll notice it. It's really cool.
Yeah. So when they returned to that scene, and like I was obviously Apple Bloom knew that they were returning to the scene.
Right.
Whenever they did it, the pacing was a little bit quicker, and there was some cute things, and I enjoyed how they treated it as well.
Well, and there was also things like, you know, Applejack would say the same things over and over again, and like it's not even. In the first couple of sequences, it made sense, but then in the third one, Apple Bloom's like, "You're not even paying attention to me. Like, I didn't even say anything like that." And then, but Applejack's like repeating it anyways.
Yeah, it was so good when she's like, oh my goodness, and like looks down, like puts her head, and then in the third scene where she does it again, it's like now it's more sinister, and now they start interrogating her. That's
I
pretty
really love
messed
that
up.
whole interrogation thing, and like, oh, you didn't get an apple on your butt, you're shunned.
Yeah.
How dare you, dolphins?
We don't have any room for non-apples, and like again, how that scene was like laid out and displayed, like her getting like sucked into the doorway, or like pictures of her family with her cut out of them in the background. It's like it's a little dark.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, there's another dark moment when her farm got zapped by those bugs.
Yeah, and it's like,
flashed
oh
in her
god, my
eyes.
home.
Yeah, it flashed in her eyes. The flashing of her home being destroyed was like in her eyes. It's like, who storyboarded that panel? Jesus. Oh,
Yeah.
My goodness. And repeating things. You remember when Apple Bloom was like kept repeating everything the old guy was saying? And she looked at the camera at one point and then he's like, you got to stop repeating everything I say. And like, it was funny because it felt like a self-aware moment.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I feel like everybody's been in that conversation, you know, like, I feel like it's a very real conversation. It's not like super scripted. Like, it sounds super scripted, but then you get into that conversation in real life and it's like, oh crap, I am repeating everything you say.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
I also have two dumb notes here, not to go back too much towards fan service things, but when they were running away from the town, like being destroyed or burned away, when the Apple family was running away, there was a lot of old Apple family characters we hadn't seen, like Apple Fritter and like the girl with like the curly hair, not curly hair, but pigtails and stuff that I really like. I think she's really cute. And like the cart, and there was Brayburn as well. Brayburn was running past the camera. And also when the normal town ponies were running away, when Apple Bloom started going to town, Lyra was running away, and Lyra had the wrong eye color.
Snap.
She didn't have yellow eyes. She had magenta eyes, like Vinyl Scratch has, or
Snap.
whoever, or Rainbow Dash rather. I thought that was funny.
Tisk.
I figured like background ponies would have had like this is your eye in your file. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting that they seem to have like all of the, like they you'd think that they would have all of those. If you've already got like the Lyra model, you'd think that they would, or maybe not. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, and then
we don't know.
One last thing I actually want to ask you about. When you were listening to them, the Cutie Art Crusaders in the very opening scene in the introduction before the intro, did they sound older to you? Did like each Cutie Art Crusader sound older to you? Because to me, throughout the episode, their voices sounded physically older. And maybe it's just because we've been away for an entire year, right?
Well,
because of like, but I
yeah.
feel like because they are kids and they are like kid voice actors, and they did sound a bit much more mature to me. Like Sweetie Belle like sounded less squeaky. She sounded less higher pitched, and even Scootaloo as well, I felt.
So I didn't notice anything in particular. So I wouldn't be able to say yes or no on that, but it does make sense. You know, those voice actors and actresses, or I guess they're all actresses, are growing up, and so, you know, it's not necessarily that, like, obviously, you know, as you get older, you might still be able to put on the same voice, but, like, you know, the way that you put on the voice might be just slightly different to sound a little bit older. And I think over time, you'll notice voices will actually change from season to season as well.
Yeah.
Applejack's being the biggest one from season 1 to season 2, but, you know, as people get more comfortable in their characters, their natural kind of voice for the character changes over time as well. So it might just be that, like, it's been a year since we heard the CMC, right?
Yeah, well, there's probably like a lot of factors that factor in there, but I felt like the voice quality was a bit different. But also, like, when I think about stuff like that, I'm fine with it, because like they are like seen as kid characters. It is, we've seen them for a long time, and they are coming with this terms of growing up, so to speak, and getting their cutie marks. So I like the fact that kid actors portraying kid characters in a series where we want to see character development, they do sound older, kind of, so to speak. If they do, like, I could again be crazy,
right?
But
right. When are they actually going to get their
like
cutie marks?
Right? Hopefully, I'm hoping they tackle it in the season. It'd be really cute if they do.
In before episode about one of them getting their cutie marks and the other ones having to deal with being different.
Right.
All right. I'm assuming at some point someone will get a cutie mark and they won't just keep teasing us.
Well, I mean, they have been confirmed for season 6, right? Maybe they're saving it.
Maybe. All right. Well, that's everything that we're going to talk about in this episode, unless you have anything else, Burned.
Nah, I'm good.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's everything. So join us again next week, and make sure you like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week for the next Spoilercast. Bye.
See you guys.